He's Justin, I'm Glenn, and you're on Wayne.com to watch Inside the Zone as we prepare for regionals. I don't know, these chairs are extra swivelly.
Keep spinning.
They're extra swivelly this week.
If I don't want to answer a question, I'm just going to turn myself around.
Yeah, that's because we have to, change our position very quickly.
Yes.
Because last week, I wasn't sure how many teams we'd have survive last week.
Yeah.
Boom, and the answer is 8.
We got 8 of them.
I thought it could be as few as 5 with 4 games this week, but no, we've got 7 games, 8 teams still alive. What is your big takeaway from last week? Because my thought was I didn't know what the lay of the land was throughout the state of Indiana, outside of Northeast Indiana this year, but I didn't know if we were, I kind of thought we might be down as an area. Apparently wrong.
Apparently not. You look in the north and you're looking for, at least out of 6A, there's not really those dominant teams, at least in the regional round, that thought, okay, once our teams run up against Team A or Team B, it's going to be all over. And you look now at these regional matchups, and you can make a good case for a fair amount of our teams to win on Friday. And then who knows? I mean, semi-state, are we having 4 or 5 different programs play for a chance to win, to get to the state title game?
You mentioned 6A, so I'm going to start there.
Yeah.
Carroll beats Snyder 21-10.
Yeah.
Second time they beat him this season, closer than the 30-6 game we saw in the regular season. But Carroll now goes to Crown Point, who's a really tough ball club.
Yeah.
What do you expect to see in this one? It's going to be an 8 o'clock kick our time over there in the region. So you got to travel. It's a different time. A lot of things going on. What do you see as being the keys in this football game?
Well, we've looked at 6A for a long time and saying, well, once you have to play teams out of the 3-1-7, that's going to be difficult. But the region has really grown as a 6A power in the last several years. You look at Crown Point. If it's not Crown Point, it's Valpo. You look up there, and there's a lot of really good teams up there. And now Carroll's going to have to figure out a way to go there and get a dub. They played very well last week. They've been really good for the majority of the season. Can they take that next step that they're really going to have to do? Because now there's no shying away from having to take on the best teams in Class 6A. And to get to even the semi-state, let alone the state championship game, you're going to have to beat at least one of those teams. And this is the first one that you look at Carroll and say, okay, now how good are you in this class? Because it is a very difficult game coming up on Friday.
Crown Point coming off a 35-zip win over Penn. They beat, I think it was Portage in their first playoff game. So they've outscored opponents in the postseason 70-0.
Yeah.
They have the number 1 scoring defense in 6A, the number 1 scoring offense in 6A. When you're that good at offense and you're that good at defense, it's going to be a tough road. I'm not saying Carroll can't do it, but it is a tough road to hoe.
It is, and Penn doesn't lose 35-0 very often.
Yeah.
So what Crown Point did last week was really, really impressive. The positives for Carroll offensively, they've looked really good as they have all season long. The emergence of Will Jeffries over the past month has been good as they've tried to keep Nate Starks healthy for defense and using him less on offense, and that's kind of pushed Jeffries into a showcase moment for the last month or so, which is pretty cool for a senior that has played predominantly defense over the course of his prep career. So that's cool, but you look, I think, defensively can Carroll hang with Crown Point? Can they get stops? Carroll cannot win this game 50-48. They just can't. They have to keep this game in the 20s, early 30s to have a shot, and that's what I think really looking at the potential of a mismatch with that Crown Point offense and how dominant it is.
And the one thing, I was at the Carroll game last week. The one thing we don't think, and Jimmy Sullivan mentioned this in the interview that we did before the game earlier in the week, was that if you look at the stats, Carroll's a rushing team. You think Jimmy Sullivan, Big Ten quarterback, going to Iowa, this is a team that's just slinging the ball around, but they have more rushing yards this season than they have passing yards. Jeffries, Starks, Green, and then Sullivan actually leads them in rushing. I just think that makes them a tougher out as last week was the last week where it was kind of cold, really, for ball. As you move along in the postseason in Indiana in November, that bodes well.
It does. You have to be balanced. At some point over the course of the playoffs, you're going to run against a team that's going to take away what you like to do, your dominant facet on offense. Whether you're a run-heavy team, pass-heavy team, whatever, at some point, you're going to have to do the other one to win. And Adams Central, as good as they are offensively running the football, they have been adept the last 3 years when they need to pass the ball. And now you look at Carroll running the football and passing. They are a balanced offense. It's very effective. And now the question is, can it be effective enough to go on the road and knock off an undefeated team like Crown Point.